Derrick, from a perspective of the Hospitality Association, are trends in are the COVID impacts in Grande Prairie different than across the province? How do you relate to that across the province perspective?
No, I think all across Alberta, southern to northern, central, I think the whole industry is feeling the same pinches, same challenges. You know, if it's labor to restrictions, to concerns of guest experience, to turnout of guests, right? You know, every time the government talks, the Hospitality Association definitely gets a flood of emails, questions from restaurateurs and the public saying, how do I follow the rules and not get yelled at or not break the rules, right? Or mandates. So all across Alberta, there's just lots of questions, lots of uncertainty, right?
For sure. Unless John or Jason had something different on that, I was going to move on to the next question, if you're all right, just sort of keep us in time.
The only thing I wanted to add was, like, I was in Edmonton yesterday, and it's just the same as us. We're going through the same problems. Like, we went to Tim Hortons and we were asked for our passports at the door. We didn't even get in. We went to Taco Bell and everybody was walking in. No one asked a thing. And they were so busy they couldn't keep up. So the inconsistency for me is the hardest part of all of this. You know, everybody wants to survive, but to be the sheriff for the government, I find is just so unfair. You know, it's just terrible.
Yeah. Jason, you were going to say something?
Yeah, just quick. I was just going to touch a little bit more, just to elaborate with Shawna as well. Just the integration of technology to reduce employees on our payroll is probably one of the areas that we're really trying to find. We've been really trying to find integration with software to just improve and streamline our business. To dabble into Jim's comment there with takeout and things like that. So, you know, less people are touching it, less entry in different point of sale systems, but that's really an area that we're focusing on, is to just employ less people.
Great, thanks. When we come to trends, I want to talk about how lunch business has changed, because I don't think people are picking it up and taking it out and going home. So I'm curious, you know, are more people just eating at home or more people using delivery services? So we'll come back to that. But I'm going to start, John, because you're not one to hold back your opinions. I'm curious on your opinion on the city's response to support hospitality with COVID. You know, did you think that, you know, working with the chamber, and we offered immediately some marketing boot camps, and then we went into providing the information as bet through the chamber and through our organization. So, because it was such an evolving conversation. One day there was, you know, in the early days last March, it was daily changing, right? So tell me your opinion on the city's response and support and or lack thereof.
You know, I didn't have a problem with any of the support stuff, like the patio packages. I got the crime mitigation grants, and most of the grants I've applied for, I've been there for. And I mean, the city's response is a tough one, because the response of Alberta Health Services doesn't match what the city can do. Like, it's, I'm talking with my health inspector, and all I'm getting is, well, that's Alberta Health, you got to talk to them. And instead of saying, hey, how can I help you through this, John? How can we find an easier way to get your dining room open? People in here safety. You can do the rapid testing. You know, Jeffries, I've been working with them and talking to them about that. But that, my biggest issue is just the health department in general. They're the first ones to phone us about warnings and complaints, but not to phone us and say, hey, how can we give you a hand here? You know, we haven't seen a health inspector in our building in 1.5 years. I mean, that's a little crazy in the sense that maybe they're working at home, but I mean, all those kitchens that usually get inspections, feedback, or anything is just quiet.
Yeah, for sure. Jason, what are your thoughts on COVID, the city's response to COVID? And did you guys apply for any of the economic development grants or take an opportunity of any of the training, et cetera?
I think, to be honest, we took advantage of every grant that we were applicable for, outside of some of the development stuff that we just couldn't. So yeah, it was great in that, you know, to be able to improve our building during these times. I would say the biggest challenge with that is obviously a capital expenditure, still a capital expenditure. So it was risky for us even to, you know, output some of the money even to be matched, but it did, you know, it was great in the end. I mean, we're still having a hard time to just claw back some of the money that we did expose in the first place. I would say it's hard to even think back because you're just going day by day. But one of the areas was lobbying the city, just the lack of lobbying, I guess the perception of the city's lack of lobbying to a better Alberta Health Services to actually get us information of why the decisions provincially were getting made the way they are.
Right.
It's easy to look back now in hindsight. I mean, to think of some of the restrictions that were put into place in the beginning compared to what's now, they probably didn't need to be there. Again, it's hindsight's 2020. I do understand that, but never once were we given information as to why decisions were getting made statistically, at least not consistently, to build any confidence.
For sure. Sean, I know you have lots of experience at the provincial and national level with different organizations. Tell me, how do you think the city's response compared to other municipalities that you've seen, in their response?
I think the city's response was good. I didn't, for my type of business, I didn't access a lot of the items that others are talking about here today. But the one thing that I found is when the city implemented the masking bylaw, I found that helpful in the respect that we were taking a lot of heat from customers, whether or not we were enforcing it and weren't enforcing it, and having a blanket policy kind of put us all on a level playing field. The only thing I think the city could have done around that is been more proactive at educating the public that the businesses weren't responsible for enforcement. I don't think that was communicated very well, and it created a lot of angst within our businesses amongst our customers. People who are like, well, there's someone in here without a mask, why aren't you doing something? And to be realistic, we can't protect our staff and ensure a healthy and safe work environment and enforce all these different types of rules that are very contentious. As far as comparisons across the province and the country, I think the City of Grande Prairie has been very good at keeping up. I'm seeing lots of similar programs and are being very effective. But again, just an avocation of the business community and the specific challenges we're having around these new rules would be beneficial, as well as some sort of communication system to help us navigate some of these questions.
Jim, did Browns take an advantage of any of the programs that were offered either through the chamber or through the city? Oh, you're muted. Sorry, Jim.
I know we applied for the patio grant, but I think I made a few mistakes in the application and in the process. We had ordered our stuff before we applied, and so I don't think we received it. But yeah, so I don't have a lot to say about it.
And so I'm curious, so you were working with economic development in that, and did they it was just a miscommunication, or was there something that we could have done to improve the service?
No, I think the service was fine. It was just my error. We had gone ahead and bought everything and started doing it, and then
and you needed quotes or something, I think.
So yeah. So either way, it was my fault.
Okay. I wanted to move on to labor shortages. I'm going to start, Derrick. What are you hearing across the province, and how does it compare to locally? We know in Grande Prairie we're always in a little bit of a different situation than many other regions, but tell me what you're hearing across the province from a hospitality opinion.
Yeah, it's everything from northern to southern. Labor challenges and shortages. Prices are skyrocketing. There's that short-term thinking where people are poaching people, as an example, Calgary to Banff with Fairmonts. They were poaching guys from Calgary online and paying exponential amount of price, which I guess explains why they charge $40 for a hamburger at some of those places. So there's definitely short-term thinking by some business owners, and a major shortage of capable front house managers, chefs, cooks, servers, bartenders, everybody. And then partly because of the uncertainty of the industry, there's great people all across this fantastic province that are saying, the uncertainty of the industry in general, why go back to the well where we're getting treated like a light switch being turned on and off every day, right? So great people find great jobs, and it's unfortunate for us when we find great people that the risk of losing them is fairly high.
Sure. John, you have staff that's been with you a long time, as I think most of you do. Tell me, now that you're currently just doing takeout and curbside, what are your staff doing? I mean, tell me the rough how rough is this on the families that work for you? The employees, the servers, what are they
You know what?
doing?
I don't think it's been that hard for us, to be honest, because like for us, the very first one, like Jim said, it was like learning your whole business over again. And I mean, like now we can honestly say we're really good at takeout. It sure took a long time, but we're really good at it. That being said, the hardest part about the takeout is the extra costs, and it's killing us. You know, your supplies go from an average of 1.5% when you work your butt off, and now you're at like 6%. So, but going towards my staff, the only fortunate thing is we kind of whittled our way through this, and I've used all my servers as my drivers. So with Skip charging 25%, if I use my drivers, it's 15. If I up my prices, it's 10. If I go exclusive with them, blah, blah, blah. So I've got my Skip percentage down to about 1 or 2%. And all my drivers, I have 4 drivers every night, and they're all my servers, and they get paid out their tips every single night. So most of my drivers are making anywhere from $80 to $150 a night. So they're pretty pleased with it. You know, the only thing is if the government would come back and at least, you know, like Mo said, give us an opportunity, give us some serve, give us some EI for these kids. Like, because like he said, they're only going to come back to the well so many times, and then they're going to say, I think I'm done with the serving in the industry because I just can't seem to keep my job. But
Right.
so far, I'm very fortunate. I have an amazing core staff. I haven't lost anybody. I've actually got more applications lately than I haven't. So, you know, knock on wood, it continues, and we just do our best to get through this.
Jason, what about you guys? Is there a labor shortage in our city for hospitality workers?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I know we were struggling big time just before these recent restrictions were put into place. So like Jim said, maybe it was just prior to you getting on the conversation, is all of a sudden we went from really struggling, really trying to find people, to the fact that we've kind of got a couple too many at this point. So a little unfair to touch on the subject right now. Be a little bit short-term thinking, but I think it's pretty common right across Canada that everybody's struggling, and I think it's just trying to get some people back into the workforce, period. But as Mo said as well, it's good people are finding good jobs in different industries just because of the uncertainty. So this on-off's killing labor.
Yeah, and Jim, anything different in your perspective?
No, pretty much the same thing. This question would have been a lot different 2.5 weeks ago to today, but my fear is when this goes back to when these restrictions soften or things pick up, I think like the guy said, the on-off switch, good people are going to leave the industry for sure and find other jobs.
For sure. Shawna, a little bit of a different staff situation for you, because they're not table servicing, et cetera. Tell me, I've always sort of thought of your staff sort of like retailers, and so because I have a retail store as well. And so I know in the retail industry, it's been really hard to find people. Are you struggling finding people, part-timers, or have you pretty much got your same crew that you've had for a while now and you're pretty good?
We have a pretty solid core group of staff, but since the pandemic started, there have been 2 mass layoffs right around the government lockdowns. And every time we do that, I think it was Jason that was saying, the uncertainty is driving people to other professions, other careers, other jobs, where they're saying, well, I'm not going to get locked down again. And we don't know what's happening to you as in the restaurant industry. So we just have to protect our family's income, which we totally understand. But every time we do that, we lose a little bit of talent. And the lockdowns have been very directed at the restaurant industry. We have felt them quite a bit. And I think it's going to be an uphill battle to attract staff back to this industry. And that's also a trend they're seeing across Canada. The Canadian Chamber has talked a lot about this, about people leaving the industry. And I think that it is going to be a problem because the hospitality industry is one of the largest employers across Canada. And if we can't find people, our return to normal will be longer. It will have implications on GDP and the financial growth within our communities. So we need to be able to have access to staff. So
For sure.
that's very challenging.
Absolutely. It's interesting you said that. My brother-in-law was a pilot with Air Canada, lives in Ontario, and first go around, Air Canada just did a massive wipeout of, layoff of pilots. And so through the Ontario government, he was paid to get retrained. He decided to become a truck driver, got his class 1, got into a local, an Ontario company. So doing, a couple hour trips, basically Grande Prairie to Edmonton type hauls. Now the airlines are looking to bring all these pilots back. Well, first of all, they got to get recertified. And second of all, a lot of them that have retrained are kind of like, well, I don't know if I want to do that anymore. I can be home every night, make decent money. It's consistent. There's a labor shortage in truck drivers. There always has been. And so, it's interesting to see the juggle of people through different industries and how this will all settle. Tell me, John, your thoughts on trends you're seeing. You mentioned that a lot more takeout. Everybody, I think, agrees they've become better at takeout. How do you see this the way of the future? Do you really see overall less in-room dining? I mean, I don't see this changing for, a little bit. So what are your thoughts?
I'm curious to see where this trend is going to go from all this, because I think just like these guys are all saying right now, it seems like I noticed that with this city in general, driving around at night, you're not seeing any late night traffic, especially Sunday to Thursday. Most of the places I've been seeing are 10 o'clock finish, 11, 12. So how that comes back, I'm not sure. I think, we have to get the restaurants back on track, get restrictions lifted, get people more comfortable, because it's not that Grande Prairie is slow. I mean, we all know that Grande Prairie is doing very well right now. Most of the oil field companies that come in and talk, and I'm grateful for the catering and stuff and everything. But yeah, I don't know what to think after this. I mean, in the last few years, you've noticed the nightclubs disappearing and more pubs and more local and more people just going to restaurants. But yeah, right now I would say takeout is massive. Like I'm only doing takeout right now and I'm probably down still only 30 or 40% in our sales. So that tells me that there's definitely something up right now for sure.
Jim, tell me, you do a lot at lunch and dinner, obviously, but what do you think people are doing at lunch? If they're not coming to restaurants, are they going home? Are they actually using Skip or DoorDash or delivery services? What are they doing for lunch if they're not in the restaurants?
I find it's pretty consistent through dinner and lunch. Our percentages are very similar, takeout lunch versus takeout dinner. So that surprised me as well. Actually, I didn't know that till this morning, but so I think people are still getting it to go at lunch and to go at dinner. Dine in is all the percentages kind of stayed the same, just went down through this.
Right. Yeah. What about you, Jason? Sorry, what are you seeing at lunch? I know that, your business has definitely pivoted. Definitely was a lot of evening business in the past. I know at lunchtimes, it seems to be, I live in the area, so I see your parking lots, got some good traffic there. Has it really shifted for you? Are you, is it a lot of focus on lunch now and then evening is more takeout, or what's the sort of trend for you guys?
In terms of takeout, it's just like Jim says, the percentages of the takeout are mirror pretty much day and night. That's not a lot different. Yeah, we've been trying to focus for a while now on trying to the daytime to lunch and night, and this has driven it a little bit into hyperspeed. So that's helped us if you can find one positive thing out of it all. But yeah, in terms of takeout, that's probably, like Jim says, it's not a huge percentage of our business. It's very hard to push people into it. It's not why we got in the industry. This is a pivot that we're trying to complete, but it's different for all of our personalities. We want to see people, we want to talk to people, we want to host people. So yeah, it's definitely a challenge for all of us. One trend that I'm not sure if this is a little bit off topic, one trend that we are seeing, to get onto the trend topic though, is food pricing. So that's very concerning right now. It is extremely high and is extremely inconsistent. So that's something that we've really got to keep focus on daily and pre-purchase if you can in certain areas, because yeah, that's a trend that looks like it's going in a bad direction.
Yeah, that brings up a good point. I know even for myself, from my head office is in Vancouver, and I pay as much freight from Vancouver to Edmonton as I do from Edmonton to Grande Prairie, right? So never mind that the pricing of food and et cetera has gone up. The freight prices are, extremely high here. I know that the freight prices from Grand Prairie, from Vancouver to Grand Prairie for Rocky Mountain Chocolate Factory are the same as they are from Vancouver to Ontario. So, you know, if you think about that, it's not realistic for us to be a rural sort of location and pay those pricing. But what do you think, Derrick, in a perspective? What are you seeing in trends? Like we all talk technology's improved, you know, being more adaptable to curbside, takeout, that kind of thing. Is there other trends that, you know, the Hospitality Association is looking at across the province?
Well, I think, you know, everybody's adapting as fast as possible, and everybody's analyzing their systems to be as cost effective as possible. And it kind of got brought up in a small spectrum of downsizing retail space, you know, on that side of things, of how many seats, and then downsizing, you know, across Canada, downsizing menus, downsizing items, and being who you are to what you are to be cost effective, right? Because you know, people that maybe had 50 plus items are doing 35 items, and that's a trend that's probably here to stay. The less is more mentality of what makes money in trying times, and then go from there. And then the internet is here to stay, and if anybody hasn't caught up to that or seen it, it's in the restaurant industry, just like it got into the taxi cab industry, which is I think is a good thing if we embrace it and are diligent with it. It's going to give us better opportunity to communicate to our guests. We see that with social media that everybody's embraced in, online bookings, you know, ordering food in many avenues, which there's so many platforms and so many systems that are reaching out to the Hospitality Association on trying to get their names out there. You know, and it's just time, right? That's the exciting part of it. You know, the internet is gonna, you know, if you would have said 20 years ago, the internet's going to help you drive sales in a restaurant, you might not have understood it, but now I think it's here to stay, right? But, you know, and then scheduling, there's so many tools nowadays that you can use to schedule with your staff and talk with them all day instead of an old Excel spreadsheet where you build a schedule. There's live snapshots that sync to your POS systems that people are using, and you have live instant labor costs every day, every morning, on that side of things. And you have to find all these tools and start to implement them as an industry. Revenue right now is down 50 to 75%. Even that last time the government come out and put stipulations, and cost of goods are going up 5 to 25%, right? So there, you know, the margin of a restaurant before all this started was 7%, and right now there's 0 margin, right? Like that's where we're at. And I think the perception of, you know, the media out there saying, well, you can do takeout, and the, you know, these thought processes of like, well, how are you, you know, you're allowed to do these things. It doesn't make for a profitable business, right? And the reason everybody got into the industry is to hopefully make a living and provide for their family. And, you know, most people are extroverts, they're passionate, they're caring, they're here to host, and you know, the joys of the industry was about flexibility and energy and upbeat, and it feels like the last 3 years that's been very, I don't want to say sucked out of it, but is been challenging, right? And you know, the passionate people are still trying to get to the finish line, and then there's the uncertainty of it, right?
For sure. I know, other than possibly fitness facilities, I don't know anybody who's been impacted and pivoted so many times as hospitality and restaurants. You know, from a city perspective, Shawna and you both mentioned smaller locations. As an elected official, that's super concerning. If all of a sudden you all just have smaller footprints, it means less revenue. And we still have the same footprint to operate, right? We still have the same number of roads to plow. We still have the same number of road potholes to fill. And then you're paying less taxes because maybe you get a subtenant in half of your building for something else. And depending on the value of how that impacts the assessment on your building, it could mean less property taxes for us. Or if some people close up shop, you know, it's all of hospitality. We've always been such a hub that hospitality has such a large impact in our city. And to see less offering is, you know, not only concerning in regards to the city shrinking itself, it's concerning in regards to new economic spinoff. And, you know, when large organizations come through and they see buildings stores closing, it's not good for our city, right? So, I mean, there's lots of stuff there to unpack in regards to smaller footprints, less restaurants open, less, you know, if you're becoming more electronically efficient and hiring less people, that means we have more unemployed people potentially in our city if they're not able to retrain. So I think that sometimes, as you mentioned, that people forget the impact of hospitality in our city. And as you have pivoted so many times through the pandemic, you know, you're master on, master off, you're closed, you're open, you know, and some of the times you were closed, there was a little bit of notice. Some of the times there was no notice. I mean, it's been just an unfortunate mix of things for hospitality. So I really have a lot of respect for all of you as business leaders, but also as people, because I know it's stressful and it hurts your heart every day you come to work and you just don't know what's happening that day. Shawna, tell me in regards to trends in your thought, have you seen catering increase? What are some different trends in your business that you've seen?
So being that our business was primarily takeout to begin with, the majority of our customers order and takeout, the percentage that actually stay in our restaurants was little compared to who took out. But we do have good catering numbers, especially in Grande Prairie. It's a great take and go type thing. But as John was saying, the expenses around takeout are increasing because people don't just want a platter of subs. They have to consider safety measures, you know, and cross-contamination and stuff. So you're finding you're having to wrap each one individually, and you're having to create different scenarios to accommodate different workplaces, which is increasing our expense around that. The shift to technology, like we've talked about here, has been fairly significant. But the one thing I want to note is that shift to technology doesn't save us money on our bottom line. Like I have this conversation sometimes with people, you know, we're hiring less people and we're leaning into technology, mostly because we can't find the people. But the expenses on technology can be quite significant, and they're replacing the costs that we're spending on wages and stuff like that. And the rise of third-party delivery is very concerning, because this is a particular segment of our business that we do not make a lot of money on. In fact, in some cases, we don't make any money on it. I would like to see more advocacy, and again, on a provincial and a national level, to try and limit the amount of fees that can be charged to businesses on this. It can be very predatory on us, because the pandemic has forced us to go in this direction, and we have no choice but to pay those fees. So that's another way that the industry needs to be supported.
Yeah, absolutely. That brings up two good points. You mentioned packaging. Absolutely. I know for my own business, you know, you used to come in and buy a piece of chocolate and we might put it in a small white paper bag. Now if DoorDash comes, it's in a white bag. Plus it's, you know, in another bag because the courier's touching it. And just the amount of packaging now in our society is not going down, which was always sort of a concern, right? We're moving to be less packaging, but now through this shift, we're increasing the amount of packaging that's out there. Did anybody hear, Shawna, you made the comment in regards to advocacy on limiting fees with delivery services. I think I just read something that BC made a change, or as the provincial government is working with the delivery services to cap the percentage that they were allowed to charge. Did anybody read that? No? Yeah, I might have
seen something that they were limiting it at 15%, but
Yeah.
I had thought that was a temporary measure,
okay.
And not long-term, but I haven't seen any additional information on that becoming a long-term trend.
Right. Okay. Well, again, thank you so much for all your time today. You know, I really appreciate this. And as I said, I really have a lot of respect and appreciate what you guys do in our city, not just as business owners. I know you all contribute to the city and the region through many things, whether it's sports teams and nonprofits and joining boards like you all have and committing your time to different organizations. So thank you. Thank you as the interim mayor, I thank you, but also thank you as a fellow small business operator for what you do for supporting each other. I really appreciate it. And I thank you for your time today. Thanks, guys.
Cheers, guys.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
luck.
Bye. Thank
Thank
you.
you.